You are listening to 91.7 WMUH Allentown, the only station that matters. You just heard Rachel Norman with her song Verified from her first EP, Resist. And then before that, you heard Yuna with Tourist and Dodie with Ready Now. But not to overshadow them, but we have the artist herself in the station with me. We have Rachel Norman here. Hello.
I'm so
Oh my
excited
God.
to be here.
This is so exciting to have another person in here because
Yes.
generally I'll make side comment to the people in here, but no one can hear them. And so it's just me being like, what? What is it? Why are you making that face? What's going on?
Don't
no
worry,
one
I'm
knows.
here. It's
Exactly.
all good.
Two people are here together.
Yes.
And that's beautiful. So, Rachel, if you want to introduce yourself to the lovely public.
Yeah, of course. Well, as Casey mentioned, my name is Rachel Norman, and I am both a singer and actor, and about to graduate Muhlenberg College along with Casey here, which is very exciting. I'm based in New York, and I've been working on my debut EP, Resist, for the past 4 years, although kind of feels like my lifetime.
4 years? Oh my God.
And so I'm really excited that it's out, and I'm just really happy to be here.
Amazing. I didn't know that you were working on it for 4 years.
Yeah, it's been a really long time, essentially since freshman year.
Jeez.
Actually.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
I had no idea.
Long time coming.
Yeah. Well, to get right into it, I have some questions to ask Rachel about like the music making process, about how she got into it in the first place, all that fun stuff, all the questions that people would be dying to ask musicians if they had the chance. So the first basic one is just like, how did you get started in music in the first place, and like what brought you to like want to take on such a task like this?
Mm-hmm. So I started singing before I started acting. I started singing at a really young age, and I remember my sister was the one to be like, hey, like Rachel should take voice lessons. And it was this crazy idea because my family, like, my parents aren't in the arts, so they didn't really have much knowledge about it. And so I was like, wait, you can take voice lessons? That exists? And that kind of was the beginning. And so I started taking voice lessons, and then when I got to high school, I discovered musical theater, as one does.
Yeah, as you do.
And I thought that was like the be-all and end-all. And then, but I always loved writing my own songs, and I have these really early memories of being in like elementary school and not knowing what I was doing, but I would just I had this like summer task of like writing an album, and I remember like recording it on GarageBand, just like my a cappella vocals, and burning it onto a CD and giving it to my best friend at the time, being like, listen to my album. And I kind of forget that happens sometimes, and it puts it into perspective because I kind of forget that this is something I've always wanted to do. And so I got involved in theater, and when I got to college, I'm a theater major. I really turned to songwriting when I experienced the rejection that comes with,
with trying to be an actor.
And I was really drawn to songwriting because it's kind of my form of like personal expression and journaling, if you will. And with all of the high-strung emotions that come with transitioning to college, I really seriously turned to songwriting as a means of expression. And here we are.
Wow. Yeah, so that's just been like a whole life task for you.
It has. It sounds so dramatic, but it feels that way.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I just can't get over the fact that you burned an album. So Resist isn't even your first EP.
I mean,
it's
I guess
not your first. I've been lying the past hour.
Me too. I've been lying to everyone, I guess. I would love to like find that CD.
Oh my
because
God.
I'm sure it doesn't exist anymore. But I wonder what like 8-year-old Rachel was singing about.
Yeah.
I think that there was a love song, but I can't imagine I
Yeah.
had any form of romantic experience at the time.
At
So-
8 years old.
Yeah. 8 years old, so it's pretty full circle.
Yeah, okay. And that's beautiful, and we
Thank
love
you.
that. So I guess another question would be like, so I'm gonna get all the questions that are more like album centric out of the way, and then go into like the whole process of you like doing things, because I feel like that's something that you don't really hear a lot of in terms of like people talking about like how they do it. But before we get to all that stuff, something that I've just been genuinely curious, because like Rachel and I are friends,
Yes, we are.
outside of this. And so I know you, and I know what life is like in college, because as you mentioned, like both of us are the same age, we're graduating, like it's very stressful, and like you're like being here is like a characteristic of being here is being busy.
Yes.
So how did you manage to like do this for the past 4 years while doing everything else? Like, was it something that just kind of came naturally? Like you would just hear or like come up with an idea and like jot it down and come back to it later? Or was it kind of like something that you knew that you were like actively pursuing for the past 4 years?
Mm-hmm. So when I first started out at Muhlenberg, I never thought that I didn't have like a plan coming into college that like I would start an album and release it when I graduated. I kind of discovered that as I went, and the beginning of freshman year, I I auditioned for all the plays and didn't really get in because I was still I had so much. I still have so much to learn, but I was a freshman, and so I just wanted to be involved in something on campus, but I wasn't really getting cast in anything, as one does as a freshman. And so, but along with that, I was experiencing my first major breakup and a lot of changes emotionally in my relationships, and also just transitioning to college socially can be really intimidating.
Yeah.
And so I initially turned to songwriting just as a means of like getting through those times. And then at the end of freshman year, I was like, what if I like reached out to music producers, and what if I actually recorded this?
Yeah.
And I had some people be like, hey, you're still at such a beginning stage, like why don't you wait? And I was like, I don't want to wait, like I didn't know if my stuff was good at all, but I kind of didn't care because I don't know, like whatever stage you're at, that's the stage you're at, and then you can build upon that. And so I really utilized the breaks and time off from school to actually record and work with other industry professionals. But all of the songwriting took place either in my bedroom late at night or like in the practice rooms. And so like while I'm on campus, more of the songwriting took place, but when I was home, I was able to fully execute the production of it all.
Right. So what was there like a defining moment freshman year that you were like, I can do this, like this is something that I can do? Or was it just something that like eventually like came to you, like you stumbled across it? Or was it like a defining moment that you were just like, you know what, this could happen, like I could do this?
I think that it had been building up throughout freshman year, but then I had this song, and over the summer I was working. Actually, I worked front desk with my old vocal coaching company, and so I was like surrounded by all of these music people all of the time, which was really fun. And I started researching music producers and recording studios that I could collaborate with, and I think that the defining moment was just hearing their responses and hearing that they were interested in the projects that I was working on. And I knew that I wanted to commit to it as a full-time thing because, I think I just realized that I had always wanted to do something like this.
Yeah. Out of all the tracks that made it to the final Resist EP, what was the first song that you wrote for it? And were there some that just didn't make the cut?
Yeah, so the first song is the intro. And I actually wrote the intro when I was like 15 years old.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
that's so cool.
I almost didn't put it on the album. I actually thought to do that. I think it was like sophomore year or like summer going into junior year. But I really wanted to include it because I wrote it actually during my parents' divorce, and it felt like it was the beginning of a chapter for me.
Right.
Just in terms of growing up, and the whole project really revolves around maturing and coming to terms with adulthood, and that there's just like inherent change in relationships,
Right.
and that's okay. But sometimes it's really difficult.
Yeah.
But also sometimes, it's really beautiful. And so I wanted to include the intro to provide context for the rest of the project.
Yeah. That's a very interesting take on that. I like that.
Thank
I'm a big fan of albums that like tell stories
Yeah.
that like have a kind of like linear progression. So that's a very interesting start of like giving the audience like a heads up into what they're going to get into and like the
Yeah.
kind of motifs with that. Before I continue, just a quick PSA. So that I will read. I don't generally read these, so this is really a special show. So join parents and experts at understood.org. I can't read. Join parents and experts at understood.org, a free online resource for the 1 in 5 kids with learning and attention issues. Here you'll get personalized recommendations, daily access to experts, and more. Go from misunderstanding to understood.org, brought to you by Understood, the Ad Council, and the only station that matters, WMUH Allentown. So, to continue. So obviously your EP is only a certain number of songs. And so were there some that like you loved that just didn't make it in there, or were these the set that you were like, this is it, like this is what needs to be done, and like neither here nor there, like this is just the songs that are meant to be?
So it was a really interesting process choosing which songs were going to be on the EP. I probably have like 6 to 8 other songs that either aren't as developed or as complex. It's interesting because like, I'm still learning, and I write music by ear, and then I share it with collaborators who have more of a foundation in theory and composition.
Right.
So I shared all of these songs with the main collaborators of the project, and I got their feedback on which they think were at the highest level or which had the most potential.
Right.
It's also interesting because I might hear something when I have a song, but then when I share it with another person, they can't picture it quite as well, and so we might have different visions for the song, and so that definitely impacted which tracks we chose to develop, because if my collaborators aren't able to encapsulate the vision, then it's not possible to further develop it, and so however, these songs I'm definitely the most passionate about. There are some others where lyrically I wasn't as proud of them, or sometimes I like blurred the lines between writing a song and just kind of ranting.
Yeah.
And so I figured like maybe people don't want to just hear me rant, or like, I didn't want to like cross those boundaries, because as personal as they are, it's also something that I'm sharing with people. So like I want people to enjoy them as well.
Yeah, of course.
They're not just for me. But the songs that made the album, they encapsulated both the personal components, but also more of a general relationship to the audience in terms of like, are they fun? Can you like dance to it a little bit, or how it makes people feel?
Right. That brings up many questions for me. One of them being what we talked about earlier before we went on air, but like how is it to put something that's relatively personal out in the public like that? Like, this has been a project of yours for 4 years now, and I'm sure you have shared these songs with people and like with friends, and like people have been a part of it, but like this is like the finite version. This is like the final cut of everything. And like, is that nerve-wracking at all to like share that with people? And like at any point were you like scared of like people, not necessarily what they would think of it, but like being so personal in such a public platform?
I think that in the beginning, the main people that I work with musically are Lucas Selig, who is the executive producer and engineer, Jason Ledhard, who's actually a Muhlenberg alumni, and my friend Chris Wong, who is an insanely talented guitarist of the band The Canvas Collective. And so between those three, they like really played a huge hand in helping me write these songs. And so they were the main people that I shared the most vulnerable parts of myself with, because like sending each other lyrics with no context for chords or any of that, like the lyrics are incredibly personal. So just sharing a cappella demos or the lyrics, it feels like you're just like bearing your soul in this dramatic way. And so in the beginning, it was pretty intimidating because I had to trust them that they wouldn't like laugh at me or you know, I was nervous about being embarrassed. And you know, when you open up about yourself, there has to be a level of trust. And so I was definitely nervous about that. As I developed my relationships with them, I think that fear went away, and I think that they really helped me grow my confidence because I felt like I was just giving them my journal and they were opening it and reading it. And so at first I was like, oh no, like, are they gonna laugh at me?
Yeah.
And then they were like, ooh, and then they came up with chords and it became a song. And once it's in the context of a song, it almost creates a distance between myself and the concept. But like a healthy distance, because, you know, of course it's inherently personal, but now it's relatable and it's not all about me. And I don't want it to be all about me. You know, I definitely want people to be able to relate to the themes of my music. And so I've become more comfortable sharing this more vulnerable side of myself.
Right. Well, that's such a nice way of looking at it, because like it seems like it would be like a very intimidating thing to just like bare your soul, as you say, like to all these people. But like I think that that's a very interesting take on it, like the level of distance that it puts between it, and it goes from being personal like to relatable. I think is like a very important aspect of it, because like you said, you don't want it to be all about you. It's based on you, but like it. Like in order to be like a quote unquote like successful piece of music, like it has to be like applicable to like the general like, the general public. So that's like a great way of looking at it. And then speaking of like your collaborators, like how is it like collaborating with people? Like is that like, are there any moments, not to like throw them under the bus? No. Jason, I'm kidding.
Hey, Jason.
But like are there any moments where it's like difficult? I mean, I'm sure there are, but like how, just I guess the general question of like how is it like collaborating with people, and like you kind of touched upon this, but like collaborating such personal things with people and like giving it to someone and like seeing what they do with it.
No, that's a really good question, and it's been an interesting process because I think that it's all about the process, and so all of these relationships were founded on like this understanding that we were sharing personal sides of ourselves. And also, it's not only a part of me, now it's a part of them, and they're sharing a part of themselves by working on this music. So by default, I trust that because I feel like anytime you're working on a creative project, you know, people are bringing themselves to it. And so if they're caring about something that you originally conceptualized, like I feel so honored that they like believed in me to even want to do that, you know, giving up their time and talents, because it means a lot. And so it was an interesting process because even though there were a couple of us, I kind of served as like the mediator between everyone. Because sometimes we had differing ideas and sometimes we disagreed with each other, and that can be uncomfortable, you know, when you're working on a creative thing. Everyone wants their idea to be incorporated into the final product, and unfortunately sometimes not everything made the final cut. And it was interesting because even though they were all bringing their visions to it, at the end of the day, it really did come down to my executive decision, which was uncomfortable because I value all of
you're like the
their
last person
knowledge
who
and
ever wants to like shoot people down.
and, not at all, and also because they're all so incredibly talented. So I know that their opinions come from a place that is rooted in like wisdom that I don't have, and so I definitely trusted their opinions. And sometimes things that I wanted didn't make the final cut, but I definitely learned from their differing perspectives because I come from way more of a poppy background. Jason is way more jazzy. Lucas is more of an EDM electronic producer, and Chris is trained to play any kind of guitar you could ever want. He can literally do anything, but he has more of an indie style that he reverts to naturally. So it was cool to combine all of those perspectives. But at the end of the day, we did have to give and take between ideas that made it into the final cut. So I think overall, I just learned so much, and I trusted that, my weaknesses are their strengths, and so I should listen and hear what they have to say.
Of course. That's really interesting that you mentioned their backgrounds, because throughout the EP you can definitely hear that. Like you can hear moments that are like very jazzy and very like indie and all that kind of stuff. And so like that's very like it's very nice to hear that like the people who you collaborate with also show up in it.
Definitely.
And like the average listener might not know that because like they don't know like the people that you work with, but like just having that insight, like it's so nice to hear that like it's not like just kind of like this one tone thing. Like you definitely like the fact that you say like your weaknesses are their strengths, and like that really comes through. And so like it really shows like how much of a collaborative piece this was, and like how much this was like an effort of like
across the board.
Like this was like a very much like this was a team that did this, and like that's always nice to see. And it's interesting because then when listening to the EP, it's not all one note. You really like vary from like style to style, which is like really cool in such a like short amount of time.
Thank you. I was hoping that it wasn't going to be too stark of a difference between each track, but then because we spent so much time on each individual track, so then I was nervous that there wouldn't be as much unity, but then it was really cool listening to everything straight through for the first time, and I really valued the transitions between songs, and I spoke to each one of them, each one of the collaborators, to see like what they think is the best order, but that both told the story and also transitioned well musically. Because I wanted to keep it in the order that I wrote them, just because story-wise it makes sense in my head. But then some of the ordering was based off of, okay, how does it sound when you put these two songs next to each other? And that's why I just emphasize at all times that this project has been a result of all of the hard work of so many people, because like it feels wrong to take credit because it's not fully mine, and I'm so appreciative that people have put forth their incredible talents, because and even like the photographers and videographers that I worked with, that helped with marketing and branding, because that introduced an entire new level to the music that I had to learn about. I had no idea what went into all of that in terms of like visuals incorporated with the music. But it really does make a difference in how you brand yourself along with the music. So it was absolutely a team effort.
Nice. And I mean that just, to me, that's nice to hear. Of like I think that it's really good that you can acknowledge that like this is an effort of a lot of people, and like it's because I feel like it would be very easy to be like, well, this is mine, that's it, this is me
Listen
now,
to my, no.
But like it's very nice that you are like so aware of like the amount of effort that it took like a lot of people to like make this a reality, and it's great to be like so appreciative of that. And I have a couple more questions for you
Mhm.
because I'm just interested at this point.
Absolutely.
So, you mentioned earlier the story of the EP. So, for people who haven't listened to it, which you should, but for the people that haven't, what would you say like the story of the EP is?
hmm I really wanted to center the female experience at the heart of it all, and so hence resist.
Nice.
I really wanted to incorporate feminism into the album, but also, as I talked about before, just the inherent shift in relationships as we get older, and so there are so many different kinds of relationships: family, friendships, romantic, and I'm really interested in the different definitions of love and how love is incorporated into all of your relationships, but it takes different forms. And so I tried to encapsulate that throughout the music, and how that has been really sometimes stressful and sometimes beautiful, and how it's been an evolving process in my identification.
Yeah. And you can definitely see like the juxtaposing kind of like talking about different sides of things if you look at like Sadness and Verified, for
Yeah,
example.
so
like
different.
very, very different songs.
Mhm.
And coincidentally they're my two favorites from it.
Oh, thank you.
Naturally the ones that are like about such different emotions.
Yeah.
But it's very interesting that you wanted to afford for such differences in such a small amount of space and time, because EPs are pretty short.
Yeah.
As you just told me, 2 to 6 songs. I didn't know that. So
Yes.
2 to 6 songs. And so that's, in the grand scheme of things, that's not a lot of time to like really tell a story. So it's great that you saw the opportunity to do it and you took the risk instead of making everything like a one note kind of experience to being about like what it is to essentially like be human.
Yeah.
And be like a woman, which is always great. I'm always
Always
here
great.
for that.
We love women.
We love women here at WMUH.
Yes.
And in life, you know,
You love them.
you love them. Can't live with them, can't live without them, as they say. Yeah, and so having that in mind, having what your intentions are with the EP, what would you want people to take away from it upon listening to it for the first time, or even like the 9th time? Like what would you want? What is it that you want your audience to like leave with?
I think that the strongest message that has resonated with me and that I really hope others find when listening to Resist is that I think that for women in particular, it's really easy, and I think that we're subconsciously encouraged to identify ourselves within the context of other people, specifically men, whether you're in a romantic relationship or elsewhere. We take on this emotional labor that no one asks of us, but is almost expected. And so this music really, I attempt to subvert that pressure, because I absolutely fell victim to that. And I didn't even realize that I had until I was going through another breakup, and it disturbed me because, I actively like to center my creative work around socially conscious issues. And so then for me to be like, oh, wait, I myself am adhering to these, societal oppressive norms. It was definitely disturbing. And so I realized that you have to actively remind yourself not to do that. It's not easy, and it's still a process. And so I really hope that when people listen to this music, they can kind of take away the notion that we should identify ourselves within ourselves. And of course, our relationships impact who we are, and we surround ourselves with people who make us better. But at the same time, we need to have a strong grasp on ourselves first and foremost before we can share that with other people. Because that's all you have at the end of the day.
That's beautiful. I love that.
Thank you.
That's very nice. Yeah, because that is definitely a very easy thing that a lot of women get caught up in, is just like identifying as part of something. And so it's great that you display such a big message in like such a small space, because that's like very impressive. Some people take like albums to do that. And
well,
so,
I hope to. I hope that that's what people get from that.
Of course. And I definitely, especially with a name like Resist, like you can interpret that other ways, but
right.
like,
I mean, it definitely stands out as being political, which at first I was worried about because, I didn't want to title it Resist and then, it not live up to the full throttle of, the implications that word has. I really wanted to do it justice. But yeah, I definitely hope to inspire others to actively pursue that.
Yeah. How did you how did you come to the conclusion of calling it Resist?
Well, so funny story. I'm going to give my friend Jason a shout out again. Hey, Jason. So this is a fun story that we like to share with people because I think that it really solidified our partnership as music collaborators. I wrote the song Resist, the words and the melody, completely on my own. I wasn't with another person in the room. I didn't tell anybody that I was writing it. I wrote it. And then Jason wrote the chords and the instrumentation completely on his own.
Right.
Like, we did not talk about this.
Yeah.
We didn't even know that the other was writing anything. We were just, we do our own thing musically, and sometimes we share it with each other.
Right.
And then one day, and we send each other, like, audio files all the time, being like, what do you think of this?
Yeah.
I don't like this. I really like this. And so he sent me the chords that he had written. And it was recently after I had written the melody and the lyrics.
Right.
And I was like, wait a minute. That sounds like it could match up perfectly with these words that I wrote. And then I played his chords and I sang it to myself, and it matched perfectly.
That's crazy.
Like my melody with his chords. And then I was like, hold on. You need to come over. And so I texted him the lyrics and my audio file of like the acapella version. And then he put it in his Logic or Ableton file, like each one of our audio files stacked on top of each other. Rhythm-wise, it worked. Like everything just stacked up. And we both kind of freaked out in the best way possible, and then we got together and we were like, we need to develop this. And that really took off. And so that was just really exciting, and it really, I think that it built up our confidence because it's really difficult to work with another person on such personal stuff, and everyone has their own opinions about what sounds best, and so you really need to feel comfortable with that person. And this was like a huge moment for us. We got so excited, and so the theme of Resist, I think, most blatantly discusses topics of self-actualization and self-affirmation, and I definitely wanted that to be the title song because while there are themes of trauma and hardship, I didn't want to title the album Sadness, because I wanted to incorporate those difficult experiences in an optimistic framework.
Right.
And so by titling it Resist, it felt the most representative of all of the themes of the music.
Yeah, because that definitely informs your listening, because you listen to a song called Sadness from an EP called Resist, and that definitely like informs how you would take that. And it definitely makes sense why you would not want to call it Sadness or like
So
Verified
dramatic.
or something like that, because then it's just kind of like, how does that inform what what listeners are going to take it as?
Exactly.
That's really cool that you guys are like that on top of it, that you guys are just like that in sync with that. That's crazy. That's very serendipitous.
Jason's the best.
So like, what were some of your worries about like doing this? Like, once you were in the process of like recording it and you were doing this, like, what was something that you were nervous about? Because it just released, so it's like a big weight off your shoulders. But like
Right.
up until then, like what were some of your concerns?
It's interesting because I do feel a sense of relief that
Mhm.
it is out there and
Right.
shared with the public because, I've been like marketing myself as a singer and
Yeah.
everyone's like, all right, when are you going to like release
Yeah.
the thing that you keep talking about? And I'm
Right.
like, I swear I'll release it. So now I did. But at the same time, I'm just learning to accept whatever path it takes is the path that it takes. And I'm just trying to be open-minded about all of it because the fact I'm so grateful. There have been some reviews that have been written up about it, which is
I
like
just
more
read
than
the one that you posted today. That
yeah.
was beautiful.
It was. I'm so grateful. It's more than I ever could have imagined.
Right.
Like I only expect my friends and family to listen to it. You
Yeah.
know, anyone else, it's a huge bonus, and I'm appreciative to be here talking with you. And for real, anybody who listens to it is just that's all I could ask for. You
Yeah.
know, and so by having that mindset, any form of recognition it's getting, whether it be the smallest little review or stream, I'm so grateful for.
Yeah, of course. Before I move on to my next question, a quick PSA. Looking to keep your kids entertained, take a trip to your local forest, find fun activities in your neighborhood parks and green spaces like boating and biking or camping and hiking. Best of all, it's always a short drive because every neighborhood has a naturehood. And how cool is that? So visit discovertheforest.org. And that's brought to you by the Ad Council and WMUH Allentown, the only station that matters. To move on from the subject of like, what were you worried about? What was so hard about doing this? How does it feel to have an EP out?
It's really exciting. I'm so excited. It's definitely validating.
Mm-hmm.
It's really validating to be able to have this product that speaks for myself,
Right.
that I can give to people and feel confident that it represents who I am as a person and an artist. And it's nice that I can share this commercially with people.
Right.
And yeah, I'm just I'm really excited,
Yeah.
and I know that some of the other people who've worked on the album are coming out with EPs of their own. Like Jason's
Great.
coming out with an EP pretty soon, and so is Chris Wong, who's in the band The Canvas Collective. They're working on their debut EP, which is really exciting, and so it's really nice to like once you have friends in similar industries, just like celebrating everyone's successes. It's like a fun community of artists.
Yeah, like that. It must be crazy to just like have this like tangible proof of like everything you've been working up to, and like at 22, like having your first EP out, amidst like doing everything in school. Like I still can't get over the fact that you've been juggling this alongside being a full-time student this entire time. Like the amount of like dedication and like work that it took to do this at the same time of doing all the other things that you're dedicated to and working on, like that's extremely impressive.
Thank you so
like
much.
I have no idea how you managed to do that, but like you did, and so like kudos to you.
I tried.
And you succeeded. You have it. It's out there now.
Thank you. Yes.
So yeah, other than like the fact that like that's out there in the public now, that's the public's EP. What would you say like your favorite? I know like people don't like this question because it's like, how are you supposed to pick a favorite because they're all yours, but like out of the EP, like what would you say your favorite one is?
I think that it's interesting because I go through phases where I love certain songs and then I like hate certain songs. Not because I like think, not trying to like put myself down, but like sometimes when you're just like consumed with something for so long, you just start to like hate it and not want to listen to it every.
Of course, exactly.
And so it's like funny how like that has changed like throughout the past 4 years, but currently, I think that my favorite song is Verified. I was able to thank you. To give them a little shout out. Behind the Curtains Media is this incredible recording studio, but also music publicity agency located in Brooklyn that I actually used to intern at. They're an incredible team. Mike Abuso, who is the head of the recording studio and more of the musical pursuits. And then Hannah Yondo, who is the head publicist there, and I've been able to work with both of them on both the publicity side of things, but also the music end as well. And so I recorded the vocals for Verified over spring break, like this past spring break.
This past spring
yes.
break? So like last month.
Yes. And which is funny because it completely changed my vision for the song.
Right.
We added so many backing vocals that had never existed before, and those backing vocals are my favorite part of the entire EP right now.
Yeah.
Because as I have talked about a lot, and my friends make fun of me, I love me some Ariana Grande.
Yes.
Had to mention it,
Of
at
course.
least once on this
Naturally,
interview. Naturally. And like vocally, I'm just obviously, she's a mainstream pop artist, so people like her music for a reason. Great.
Yeah.
But just like vocally, she's my biggest vocal inspiration, and I have started to study, how she
does it,
how she approaches it. Yeah, and one of the things that I love is her use of backing vocals because it's so central to the song, and obviously she's an amazing singer, so anything she sings is gonna sound great. But yeah, her use of backing vocals just really fills out the song, and that's something that I did not want to copy, but I'm inspired by and wanted to emulate in my own way.
Right.
And so I think that Verified most directly encompasses that. And it was a lot of fun working with Mike, who helped me come up with ideas for backing vocals, and we were able to riff off of each other and improv some stuff, see what worked, what didn't. And so I love Verified. And also I really am passionate about the intro to Verified. A lot of work went into that intro, and a lot of discrepancies and, back and forth opinions. And at the end of the day, we did have to make a final decision on the end result of the intro to Verified. But I'm so proud of all the work that went into it, and I wanted to have this instrumental swelling of everything that kind of just took all of the themes of the whole project and burst forth into this happy summer bop that I hope people enjoy. And so Verified is really a celebration of all of that. And so yeah, Verified is my current fave.
Yeah. That's fair. Verified's great, in my opinion, in my professional music opinion. So I guess my last question for you before I just end on one of your songs is what I know you just released an EP literally 3 days ago, but what's next for you?
Yeah, that's a great question. We graduate in a couple of weeks, which is insane.
We sure do.
But it's terrifying, but also exciting. Yeah. And so I'm just trying to firstly graduate.
Yeah, makes sense.
As you do.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm going to be performing as much as I can. I've been submitting myself to a lot of local venues in New York and small grade music festivals throughout the city in Brooklyn, just to, get myself out there in the New York music scene. But I have this collection of music that I haven't been able to develop because I needed to, finish this
resist.
one casually. And so I'm really excited to start on these new songs because these are songs that I've been writing recently, and so I tend to be very impulsive, but writing Resist has forced me to just be patient and have a slow and steady pace, because as a small independent artist, financials are a real concern, and it's not something that, is of unlimited amount.
Yes.
And so, I'm just going to be starting to develop these other songs in my rep and performing as much as possible. If all goes well, I we'll be releasing a single this summer.
Great.
But also I have a fun little rooftop music video for Verified
Right.
that shot by Mia Shmariahu,
Lovely.
Muhlenberg senior as well. And so I should be releasing that in May, coming up soon.
Nice. That's very exciting. Got a lot of stuff in the
Yeah.
works. And now you can finally move on to all the new stuff and apply everything that you learned in through
Exactly.
Resist into the rest of your music. So that's great.
Yeah. Oh, also, I should be releasing a music video for Sadness. Unclear, but it'll be coming up soon.
That's so cool.
Yes.
That's gonna be good. That's gonna be really good. Yeah. So I guess where can people find you?
Yeah, people can check out my main website at rachel-norman.com. That has both my acting and musical pursuits posted there, but on Instagram at Rachel Norman Music, also on Facebook at Rachel Norman Music. And my music is now available on all online stores and streaming platforms.
There you go. And that's amazing. So it's very easy. You don't have an excuse. You got to check it out. Yeah, so to wrap up, I'll let you have a choice between what songs to play.
Oh my goodness.
It's between my two favorites because I'm selfish, but it's between Sadness and Verified. So what note do you want to go out on?
Ooh, let's go off on a positive note. Let's do
Verified. Let's do Verified. Well, thank you so much for coming in and
Thank you
taking
for
an hour of
having
your
me.
time
Oh
to
my
talk to me.
goodness. Of course.
It's been lovely. You have some lovely insight, and it clearly shows through the work that you did, and the amount of work that you put into this clearly shows upon listening to it. So you should be very proud of yourself.
Thank you so much, Casey.
It's really
and
great.
Hey, Casey is one of the stars at WMUH, and I am honored to be in her studio right now.
Thank you. Yeah, so I highly recommend checking her music out. It's really a solid EP, and I am of course not just saying that because we are friends, but because I am a music snob, so I would be just overly polite if I didn't
tell me
think
if
it was
it's
good.
horrible.
Yeah. But it really is a beautifully constructed piece. And what you said with the backing vocals, it really fills out the whole thing, and it feels like it spans across multiple genres, which is always nice. So it's not just a one-tone kind of thing. So it's on all streaming services, so you don't really have an excuse. So you kind of have to listen to it.
I'm kind of forcing you.
Yeah, not that I'm telling you to do anything, because I'm not, but it's very easy to do. So just putting that out there. And then we have a lot of very exciting stuff coming up, apparently.
Stay
So
tuned.
yeah, feel free to follow her on everything, find out what she's up to, because it's some really good stuff from what I've seen and heard. So once again, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Of course, it was a pleasure. For now, this has been Useless Titles. I'll be back same time, same place next week, and enjoy Verified.
One day I saw you and I turned around. I thought an angel fell to the ground. My mind had spun in circles all around, and I fell right next to you. I didn't know how or what to say. I put my hand up, but you turned away. I was persistently trying to say hi until you looked at me and you started to cry. lift me up so that I can run away from my dismal lives. 'Cause life with you is not a boring ride. Your arms, they keep me safe from the whole world. I'll be your woman and not just your girl. A woman strong enough to also hold you tight. 'Cause you're not the only one who can take the fight. When you came into my life, I never let you get out of my sight. We hold our hands close and it's alright. I think I know now what love feels like. It feels like, oh, it feels like, oh, feels like my heart is verified. I tell you straight up why you're not being who you are. I know you like I know what it means to lose someone.